Lost Girl Therapy. If you are somebody who struggles with anxious decision making, this might help. So, when it comes to anxious decision making, oftentimes we have difficulty figuring out what actually feels right and good because our anxious thoughts are overpowering our intuition and our gut instinct. So essentially you have this layer of your gut instinct, this kind of like natural, normal fear that comes with change or wanting to anticipate a new thing coming along. And then we get this like suppression, and that is the anxious thoughts that completely fog and cloud out our ability to see what our fears are and what our dreams are. So if this is the case, it can be really difficult to try to execute a dream because you basically are like, hey, I want to do this, but you get flooded with a ton of anxious thoughts. And then you basically talk yourself out of it. So if that is happening, here's something that I like to do that tends to be helpful for me. Let me know if it resonates. The first thing that you do is you put a date on the calendar, and that date is going to represent the day that you're going to allow yourself to sit down with your anxious thoughts. And in the time between today and that date, you are essentially going to systematically begin researching your dream. And when you sit down to research, when an anxious thought comes up, say you're like, okay, I want to change jobs and I want to switch industries and I have absolutely no idea what's happening. As you start to research, you might be like, I don't have the skill set. I don't even know what this license is. I don't know how to even do this thing. You're basically going to take a book and write down all of your anxious thoughts. And at the top of the page, put the date, the same date that you put on the calendar originally. So if your date is 2 weeks out from now, at the top of the page, you're going to put XYZ, here's my anxious thought. And you're essentially just gonna write it down. And before you continue your research, before you start evaluating like, hey, what's next for this dream, you're literally going to get up and move. You can use Mel Robbins' 5-second rule where you kind of count down from 5 and you move your physical body to break the anxious spiral. You can also run your hands under cold water. You can do some jumping jacks. You can go step outside for a little bit. You have to do something that resets the nervous system deliberately. And the reason that you do that is because when you have anxious thoughts flowing through, your nervous system is already having a reaction. So you have to start breaking the physical association with anxious thoughts. And that is how you begin separating your dreams, your fears, and anxiety. You put some space in between everything. Because when you're doing this, you're going to have an entire book of anxious thoughts. And that is okay. Each time you sit down to build your dreams, if an anxious thought pops up, you write it down. You're basically cueing your mind to say, I've got it covered. I know I'm nervous about this, but I'm going to get to it. And on the day that you've written down on your calendar, or the day at the top of that page, you're going to sit down. And this is where, like, set the scene. Get a cup of coffee, make yourself tranquil, feel really peaceful and grounded. And you're going to go down that list of anxieties, and you're going to see what you have the answers to. This is a very intentional act. You're basically saying to your mind, hey, the entire time that I was worried, I was actually taking in new information. I was actually answering my own questions. I was retaining what I needed to know. And then as you're checking off those anxious thoughts, you're actually proving to yourself that I trust myself. I know that I can learn new information. I know that I can actually build this dream. And as you do that, you're eliminating the anxiety and you're returning yourself back to the space of, I have a dream. I have some healthy fear about how I'm going to execute it, but we've completely eliminated self-doubt. And when you eliminate self-doubt, you can actually begin approaching fear back in the space of thawing it, as opposed to having it be really defensive and really tight and saying, I can never do this. Fear simply becomes a motivator, not a grounding agent. If you guys have any questions on this, please let me know. I understand that it's kind of like a, interesting concept in the way that I described it, but leave me a comment or shoot me a DM if you have any questions.